Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening in this very whirlwind beginning week of September. So, we have a lot to talk about this morning. It is also Labor Day if you're in the USA, and I'm pretty sure maybe other countries do celebrate this. So if you're joining me and you're going, wow, she's never here on Labor Day. Well, I am today, right? I could do that today. So today, as you can see, the Energy Almanac takes front and center as today begins the 2026-2027 pre-sale. So from September 1st until 11th, you have an opportunity to purchase the coil-bound Energy Almanac. We only do this because it's more expensive, obviously, for a coil-bound book. But remember, that means it can lay flat. You can turn it inside out, and it's easier then to write notes in or to journal or reflect, in the book itself, which is, of course, the reason why we do it in this way because we want it to be an interactive book. So I have listed the link to purchase the pre-sale in the chat for everybody. Excuse me, and get that now, right? Because the coil bound we only order from September 1 to 11, and the books are delivered in November. Be thinking about Christmas. Christmas is coming up. Every year I buy extras of these and I give them out to my family. So I probably get an extra 10 books just to be able to give some really cool presents to some of the people that I love. And they make extra, books for or get extra books for yourself to give to friends when you're talking about astrology, right? Introduce them to the Energy Almanac. So we're really excited about this year's because it is one that is interesting. This is a year where we have a bridge book. The bridge book is the one that we will give as a download free for everybody. So tell your friends, hey, if you don't know if you like this book or not, you can download the bridge book for free. And that is January, February, and the first half of March because we're going with the astrological new year this time, right? The book begins in March and runs through March of 2027. And that makes it extraordinary. I don't know of another book or almanac or calendar that really works this way, where the actual year begins when the actual year begins and not just the calendar January 1st. So there's the link there in the chat. Grab that link, purchase yours as a pre sale now. Now, the book is still available after the pre sale ends, but rather than it being coil bound, it is actually the paperback version. And there's nothing wrong with that version, nothing at all, except that it just, doesn't turn inside out or lay flat easily for journaling and so forth. So, welcome everybody who is checking in with me today. It's good to be here with you. It's kind of odd on a holiday weekend, or it's a Monday, but a holiday. And I have my husband over there in the other house watching on air there. And hopefully everybody is tuning in and realizing, oh, hey, Janet's on. So today, happy September, right? September 1st. I swear the months flip by faster than anything. And there is a whole new theme that develops for each month based on the astrological signature of the month. So we're going to talk about that today. What is our theme? And we're going to take a look at least the first 7 days of September. Now, the biggest news of the week, of course, is the lunar eclipse falling on Sunday, the 7th. We will talk in depth about that on Friday during the broadcast. But there's plenty of other things going on between now and then, right? Today, tomorrow, the next day, we have a lot of different transits happening. And that's why, I mean, we enter into this month. Thank God we had a couple of days this weekend, right? Where we could just breathe and have, just some space before we hit the madness that is September. And, the things are, there, it's not that these are mad or bad things either that are going on, but just feeling like that they're very much about putting some pressure on us. In fact, the theme for the month of September is about turning pressure into purpose. And you might call this sacred reform, right? So September is a month of reforming and turning that all that pressure that you're feeling into some kind of purpose. And September is a month of thresholds, then, and turning points with two eclipses that are activating the Virgo Pisces axis of your chart. If you have your own astrology chart, take a look at where that Pisces and Virgo axis is. Saturn will be opposing the sun. Multiple planets are pressed at 29 degrees during the month, which is a karmic degree, which means that's more pressure to complete something or to bring something into closure or to bring something into its fullness. And that we call them critical degrees, right? Critical or karmic degrees. And the skies ask you this month to close karmic loops and to step into new beginnings fully and without equivocation, and be accountable and be in integrity with everything that you are doing in this particular month. This isn't light or casual sort of energy. No, not at all. It's reformative, it's catalytic, and deeply purposeful. So, September, put your shoes on, put your running shoes on, get ready, right? Now, the human design story of the month of September actually mirrors this. You begin sort of in confusion and doubt. We'll talk more about what that means. And then you pass through grace and compassion and arrive finally at the end of the month through, or at the equinox, excuse me, with embodiment and realignment. And September's gift is there in every challenge, in every shadow. And every doorway is an opening to integrity or to delight. And delight, right? I did say that. And the eclipses remind you that destiny resets under pressure, and we are under pressure this month. And the question is, will you meet it with heaviness, letting it drag you down, or with the joy of embodied purpose, maybe the re excitement of your life's purpose? So, good morning to everybody who's checking in with me this morning. I see Londa and I see J Lo and Teddy. Good morning to you, Christine Buckingham. It's good to see you, and all of you that I can see behind, whose names I don't see. Welcome to the broadcast. So let's start out with today because, we put our running shoes on. I said we're running right into it. And we did talk a lot about this one on Friday, and that is Saturn retrograding backward into Pisces. Um, and he's been in the sign of Aries from May 24th until today, and giving us this opportunity to taste test, if you will, the new identity of Aries, the full sovereignty of Aries, the power of independence and forward momentum that is Aries. And now he's retreating backward into Pisces to complete the journey that began for him in 2023, that began for us in 2023. So, this is asking you to re-engage with unfinished lessons around boundaries, around faith, around compassion. And the sacred spark of Aries kind of pauses for us right now, right? From now until February 13th of 2026, Saturn will be retrograding through to Aries back in, or it will move retrograde, but then forward in Pisces all the way back to zero Aries on February 13th. Now, he's in Pisces until I looked this up this morning and it was no, it was the 20th degree. That's what I looked up. He'll be retrograding back to the 20th degree of Pisces. So from 29 degrees Pisces, where he is today, backward to 20 degrees of Pisces. And if you have any planets that are in the sign of Pisces or in that realm, that 9-degree span, it is best for you to take a look at the planets that are involved, the area of your chart that that is happening in, because it really does spell out for you what it is that you need to create boundaries about, or where it is that you need to bring in more faith and more compassion for yourself and for others. So Saturn reminds us to clean up our spiritual presence, our emotional vibe, how we express our emotions, our creative loose ends, right? What have we left hanging that we didn't quite finish? Before new structures can be built. So it's almost like we go backward a little bit, reorganize the Pisces part of ourselves, and then in February when he moves into Aries once more for the next 2 years, giving us the opportunity to start something new, right? In a It's not that we didn't start things new, when he first moved into Aries, because we did, but what likely is happening now is there's this pause, right? This sacred pause, a pause for reforming, and taking that pressure and putting it to a better purpose, right? Maybe making it a more straight line activity for yourself. So remember that that is something that will be with us, and we'll also have Neptune retrograding back into Pisces as well. So we're having this time that won't happen until later in October, but we'll be having this time period where we're revisiting all of that Piscean energy, right? And because Pisces is the very last sign of the zodiac, it does kind of point us in the direction of karmic cleanup as well, right? Where is it in your chart that you have things hanging that you must complete, right? That before you can really make that fresh start in Aries energy. All right, let me show the chart for the day today. And boom, there we go. So over on the right side of the chart, you see highlighted in green where Saturn has moved into 29.59 degrees of Pisces. Like that is the very last minute of the sign, and showing that he made that move early this morning and is now headed retrograde, or in the visual part of the chart, what you would say is he is moving now clockwise rather than counterclockwise. And it's kind of weird when planets are moving forward in an astrology chart, they're always moving counterclockwise. When they retrograde, they move clockwise. So Saturn is now clockwise moving through the sign of Pisces. And I drew in a little dark blue line right here on the just under the green highlight of Saturn, where you can see how far back he will move into the sign of Pisces. And, more is going on in Pisces and Virgo this month than meets the eye, right? For one thing, the sun is in Virgo. So we have a very big light on the part of our lives where routine and daily, the daily things that we do and the healthy habits that we've established, or the unhealthy ones that we've established, and how it is that we need to restore ourselves to well being. All of that is being reflected to us by the sun. Actually, not being reflected to us really, but by being shown in a very bright light for us during this period of time. And we have, starting tomorrow, Mercury, the planet of communication, the ruler of Virgo, moving into Virgo. So we have Mercury over here in the dark blue highlight, and that is where the sign of Virgo is today. He's at 2858 of sign of Leo. So we're finishing our Leo transit today and into tomorrow. And then tomorrow later, he moves into Virgo and begins to move through a sign that's very analytical, perfectionistic, detail oriented. And Mercury, being the ruler here, helps us to see perhaps the details that we might have been missing. So it's kind of interesting, don't you think, that Saturn moves back into Pisces, helping us to clean up our act in some way, and opposing that is Mercury in the sign of Virgo. And indeed, communication sharpens for us during Mercury's transit through the sign of Virgo, and analysis might deepen. And, there's this mind that we have that is seeking clarity during this period of time. Now, that does mean perhaps, an opportunity for overthinking, right? Or analysis paralysis. So we'll have to balance the need for thinking with the need for action. But this is a prime time for us to organize the details of something, a class that we're doing, or something that we're building, some program that we're starting, or you name it, even in your own personal life. If there's some project that you want to undertake at your house or that, in your family, this is going to be the time to get it organized, to refine what it is that must be done, and then ground those ideas and ideals into practical plans. Mercury's really good in Virgo, right? It's a sign he rules, so he's very good here, and he's very good at helping us to make those practical plans. And if you notice, then as well, Mercury, as he moves into the sign of Virgo, immediately comes into a square, a 90-degree relationship. Just follow that blue line upward to the upper right corner where we have Uranus, who will turn retrograde on September 5th. So, also involved in this early week of September. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. But that square is where some mental restlessness can occur, where perhaps there are surprise revelations or surprise information coming in. Maybe we are dealing with something to do with technology or communication skills, disruptions, possibly. It's not that, Uranus just always enters or injects this surprise uh, part of whatever it is he touches. So whenever Uranus is in a confrontational, especially because squares are kind of confrontational, you can expect that something out of the ordinary might happen, or somebody says something that makes your mind go, wow, or you say something that does that to someone else, or can be very contrary. Uranus in retrograde is the contrarian. So he sees the opposite side. He plays the devil's advocate when he's retrograde. Now, in the square to Mercury, even though he's not quite retrograde yet, he will be pretty much stationary. He's not moving. So he's hanging at that last degree of his before his retrograde, which is actually the first degree of the sign of Gemini. So that square, is being made between the two signs that Mercury rule, Gemini and Virgo. So isn't that interesting? And breakthroughs are possible. Definitely, breakthroughs are possible, but you have to remain flexible. You're going to have to, bend and flow with whatever it is that's coming up, whatever those energies are coming up for you. Now, that was September 2nd that Mercury enters Virgo. September 3rd, as he enters Virgo, he is into the square with Uranus. Then there's September 4th, right? The whole month, really, is just like this, right? So get ready. On September 4th, Mars in the sign of Libra over here on the lower left side of the chart, highlighted in pink, because pink is the closest to red. I always think of Mars in red. I circled red, but I don't have a red highlighter, but I had pink. So there we go. We have pink for his square to Jupiter in Cancer. So Cancer up here, if you follow the pink line, you see Jupiter in Cancer up at the top of the chart. Jupiter in Cancer has been expanding our values around family and traditions and the foundations of our lives and nurturing energy, right? Caring energy and expanding how it is that we learn and grow and how it is that we take care of one another and exposing, because Jupiter does this, it exposes every place where we are not in alignment with the very nurturing energy of Cancer, where because of maybe a lack of security or a feeling of not being safe or being insecure, we go too far toward alienating others or staying, isolated from others. So that Cancer crab, right, with the hard shell protecting the soft insides. And we see it in the outer world as well, where countries have taken steps to protect themselves against those nasty immigrants, right, who are taking over the place. And, there is value in making sure that those immigrants are here legally. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing altogether, but the reasoning, the shadow behind it is what is being brought up with Mars catalyzing energy that should be more about fairness and justice. And of course, you know, is it justice when some immigrants have taken all the right steps to become legal in the country versus others who have not? And that is something we have to balance as well. But also trying to do that in a caring and nurturing way rather than sending them off to prisons, etc., whatever that is all about, right? If they're anyway, I don't want to get into all of that, but Mars, bringing equitability, bringing balance, bringing harmony, establishing sort of or catalyzing the ability to bring that nurturing energy into harmony. But it's a square. So there's challenge, right? We have this challenge. So we have this desire for fairness. We have this desire for justice, and it meets the urge for emotional security. And it is that then that creates these tensions that arise and are kind of needing relationship diplomacy and negotiation and having us realign with our priorities, right? With family or home priorities balancing against your work priorities perhaps, or who you are in the outer world. Expansion is possible. This is still an expansive energy, but only with balance. It doesn't come when it's all out of balance. So, questions. Oh, first I have another one. Before we go on, let's finish the Uranus retrograde in Gemini part of all of this. This is where, anytime a planet moves retrograde, it moves inward. It pulls the energy from the outer world expression into the inner world for us to take a look at and to reevaluate or to review. And the same thing happens here with the planet Uranus, where collective innovation turns inward, where sudden insights might arise spontaneously about our personal relationship to technology, our personal relationship to innovation, and all of the things that have to do with Uranus, even the higher mind and our relationship to our higher selves, our ability to be extraordinarily intuitive, right? To really sense what is happening. It's also about freedom. Uranus is a planet that liberates. And when he turns inward, what he's doing is trying to liberate you from your own shadows, liberate you from your own false thinking, liberating you from all of the things that have held you stuck, and including your voice, where your voice hasn't been able to be heard. So, over the next months, you'll reassess how you contribute to group conversations and how you have developed future plans based on your vision of the future. What's being revealed to you during this period of time is going to be very important. This is a great time, these next few months, for you to do some journaling. And yes, Uranus will be revisiting Taurus, right? Just as Saturn is revisiting Pisces, Uranus will retrograde backward into Taurus, and we'll have to spend some time revisiting our Taurian themes, which we'll talk about more as we get closer to that period of time. So, what is it that you learned in Taurus while Uranus was in Taurus? Did you find your stuck zone? And are you free of that stuck zone yet? That'll be sort of the theme. So even now, look at the division between the Gemini and Taurus parts of your chart. If you have planets sitting there, either at early degrees of Gemini or later degrees of Taurus, those planets are being kind of presented with this inward focus now of Uranus. So it's going to be prime time for us to do some evaluative work, to really review where we are, to take a look at what we're feeling pressured about, and set about to reform that in our lives. All right. Let's see. I'm going to stop this and see who else has joined us this morning. Good morning, Catherine. Good to have you with us. I hope your dad is doing well. I saw the last post where it looked like he turned a corner. I'm so happy for that. Good morning, Alana. Good morning, Patty. And Asa, good morning to you. And Christine says Pisces Sun at 18 degrees and Pisces Mercury 23 degrees. So you have maybe some rethinking that might be a part of your experience during this period of time. And good morning to Terry and TD Hawk. Good to have you with us. Joan Durchie, happy September to you as well. And let's see, I missed somebody down at the bottom here. Willow Rose, good morning to you. And Christine says countries are gathering to protect themselves against the current administration. Indeed, that is true. And we might see a lot more of this in September, and not only because of September's transits, but you've also got to remember that September 3rd is the day that um, the Neptune, Uranus, Pluto minor grand trine clicks in to exact. So there's this flow, kind of a historic flow that is set up of that is in one corner very transformative, in another corner very much highly spiritual and helping you to find your higher spiritual ground, and on the other side with Uranus very innovative and taking us into a new ways of getting information, new ways of being in relationship to technology and communication and all of the thinking and mind stuff that we have to deal with. So that flow's been established. It's been in within orb for most of the summer. We started talking about this at the end of July. It was activating during the kites of August 1st through 15th, and still with us. It's just exact on September 3rd. And then September 9th, just next week, we end up with Pluto in that extreme declination, out of bounds, an out of bounds Pluto that is also operating behind the scenes, under, if you will, the carpet and making its way up. So there may be a lot of drastic things, dramatic things that we see in the collective, but also in our own lives that are those shadows that are coming up because we can't move forward if we're stuck in the past, if we're stuck in the shadows. So Pluto in that declination is activated from September 9th until November 9th. And then he moves a little bit out of that lower declination out, he moves back into bounds until next fall. So every fall for the next 10 years, we have this Pluto signal that really kind of jumpstarts or kickstarts or catalyzes in some way the major transformations that, our collective really requires. Our evolution as humans on this planet really requires. It's kind of exciting, but it's also a little bit disconcerting because it does, tend to happen when we least expect it. Something comes out of the blue and there's reaction, right, from both sides of the spectrum. And somehow we have to solve the problems and come into the center. And that's the whole job of Pluto in Aquarius. It brings the margins inward and undoes the center and moves it outward. So everything then becomes untethered, untied, and up for debate, up for change. So that's exciting stuff, but it's also, like I said, a little bit difficult because we never know from day to day what it is that we might be, experiencing from, one day to the next. So be ready, right? Have your tennis shoes on, have your running shoes on, get ready. And Christine asked the question, if we have a natal Uranus in retrograde, does that make us a contrarian? It makes sense, indeed, right? And a lot of you may have Uranus in retrograde, and that does make you a bit of a rebel, right? Because, you are looking inward to the impacts of reform. You look inward to where it is that you've been held back or held down, and you rebel against that, right? You start that pressure to push those boundaries, right? To expand outward in some way. Um, so because Uranus spends 4 or 5 months in retrograde, there's a good part of every year that, you know, people are born exactly with Uranus in retrograde. And so you're re-experiencing perhaps some of those places in other lifetimes where you were stuck, or where, I can imagine, Christine, a lifetime where you started a rebellion, not you personally, perhaps, or maybe you were involved with it, and it didn't go anywhere. It didn't fly, or it was left hanging. Maybe you passed away in that lifetime before you had an opportunity to finish what you started. So now, this lifetime, you come with Uranus retrograde, and there's this inner nudge that, hey, there's something left incomplete that I'm here to free, that I need to liberate within myself or liberate within the collective, depending on what sign it is in for you and also what house it's in. That would be the area where there's a sort of revolutionary spark that is, within you. So take a look at that. Um, Taurus ascendant, 28 degrees. So your ascendant will get hit when Uranus goes backwards out of Gemini and into Taurus. And your south node, no, your south node is Taurus, 2 degrees. It won't get hit. It won't get hit by that. J-Lo, with Pluto and the moon out of bounds, how does the energy play for the generational collective? Emotion. I have one big word. I could put it in all caps across the screen. Emotion, right? This is an emotional energy. When, Pluto, as we talk about Pluto, he is actually one of those planets where the energy can get very triggered by connections with the moon. So, for example, people who are born with Pluto and the moon, in fact, it's even the moon sometimes that has triggered labor in the mother, and then the child ends up born with Pluto and the moon in some kind of very tight configuration. That's how powerful this is, right? It changes things. The moon is about change. The moon brings us this emotional energy. The moon brings us this idea of timing and cycles that are being triggered, and they're triggering Pluto, transformation, the phoenix, right? So we have these phoenix moments, perhaps, that we will be experiencing. And if they're out of bounds means a more extreme expression, right? Because it's not tethered anymore to the declination or the furthest point that the sun ever moves in our solar system along the ecliptic plane. It's untethered from that. It's gone beyond the sun. So it's like the sun can't rein it in. Nobody can rein it in. Nobody can rein in the moon when she's out of bounds. No one's going to be able to rein in Pluto when he's out of bounds. So we have, the potential for a lot of things to happen that we as people might go, this has never happened in my lifetime. I never expected this to happen in my life. I never thought I would see the day when fill in the blank, right? A lot of that coming up with Pluto. And then if the moon is also in out of bounds, which she does typically go at least once or twice a month, she's out of bounds too. And boom, we have change. And that's a big deal. And we experience it as people walking the planet as, big evolutionary leaps, although we're in the midst of it, so we might not even notice it until afterward. But we can also notice it in the big things that are happening on the world stage, right? And, just to give you an example, let's take nuclear energy, right? Nuclear energy, because that's a technology. It's dangerous. That gives it Pluto energy. It was Plutoan because the energy of the atomic bomb was built during the discovery of Pluto. Nuclear energy, nuclear fission occurred during Pluto's discovery. So it sets the tone for the Plutoan energy of our lifetimes, at least, right? In the 20th century and beyond. And here we are at this very moment. They are finding ways to combine the atoms into nuclear fusion, which is what the sun does, right? The sun takes helium and hydrogen and brings it together, and that gives us energy, right? So the energy of the sun is far more sustainable than taking the hydrogen atom and splitting it which introduces volatility and introduces unsustainability into the way that we've been trying to work with nuclear energy. That is a huge, huge leap, but it's also dangerous, right? Very dangerous. And it triggers a lot of emotions in people because there have been so many different times we've come to the brink of some kind of nuclear disaster. And are we, setting ourselves up for something? And now you hear, oh, the USA wants to put a nuclear fusion plant on the moon before either Russia or China can do so, right? It's like the space race now isn't about what planet we're going to go to, although Mars is, still that big kahuna out there. But now it's about who's going to get to the moon first and use the moon as a resource base. So we have these big phoenix moments. And I just found out yesterday that right here where I live in the city of Everett, which is, I don't know, 30, 40 miles south of me, that Microsoft has commissioned an energy company to build a fusion reactor so that they can use that for their computing power. It's exciting. It's a little daunting. And that's the kind of thing that we will expect. And Uranus turned inward, causing innovation plans maybe to slow down a bit, but doing things in a different way, in a contrary way, fission to fusion, right? Totally different mechanics, one that is much more sustainable than the other. I would say that fusion is safer, but we don't know for sure yet, right? So interesting times. We live in interesting times. Okay, and you're welcome, Christine. J-Lo, she has Libra, 1 degree with Pluto at 7, conjunct her natal sun, is it, or moon? I don't know, because I also have a Pluto moon conjunction, lots of emotional energy housed within me in Virgo. Pluto's at 5 degrees Virgo, my moon at 8 degrees of Virgo. There you have that Pluto moon vision. It's why I'm kind of obsessed sometimes with looking underneath the rug, right? Looking deeper at things. Why I take astrology to the nth degree versus just, superficially talking about what is going on. Christine, hopefully it works well and takes the stress off your existing electrical grid. Indeed. That is, of course, the dream, right? That the electrical grid, the electrical needs that we have are more sustainable, becomes more sustainable, and hopefully less prone to things like lightning strikes and equipment failures. But we shall see. A moon conjunction. Okay, JLo, good. Thank you for clarifying that. And now all of these energies this week all culminate on Sunday with the lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15.23 degrees. So find Pisces in your chart and let me show you the chart once more so you can see where Pisces is. So if you look over in the green, and I've highlighted Pisces, and I even noted where that lunar eclipse will fall. So you can look at your chart now, find the symbol of the sign Pisces. That is where you will have the lunar eclipse. That's where the moon will be. By opposition, because a lunar eclipse is at a full moon when the sun and the moon are in an opposition to one another. So the sun will be at the same degree, 15.23, but in Virgo. So we're across this Virgo Pisces axis. And it's such an interesting axis because there's a lot of work that can be done in this axis, right? It's where the dream, the Piscean dream, can come through into that Virgo reality and making it real, right? It's where all of the dreams and the visions and the ideas come to become concretized, right? Made flesh or made physical. But it is also a an axis where on one side, in the Virgo side, we deal with martyrdom, right? We deal in the shadow, right? The shadow is martyrdom or perfectionism or critical thinking. Not critical thinking, that's a good thing. Criticism, right? And on the other side, in Pisces, what we have is the dreamer with the ideals that can't quite bring them into being. That's, driven by illusion or delusion, and also victim energy, right? Being victimized, being the victim. And there's a lot of victim energy on this planet, and the powers that be know how to stick that to us, really amplify the fear of other, right? The fear that your toys are going to be taken away because of immigrants, or the fear of, being left out, or not being recognized. So the fear is ramped up as well. With a Pisces Virgo axis, the next three eclipses are across this axis. So we're really being asked to let go of the fear, to become more practical and wise in how we bring our creation energies into play, and softening it with a very spiritual sort of energy, and leaning into our higher selves, leaning into our intuition. So look to where this is going on in your own chart, and this will be a north node eclipse. And why? Because the north node is what is hanging there close to the moon. Whatever the moon is closest to is the kind of eclipse it is. So a north node eclipse means it has a fated quality, hand of destiny kind of quality that's engaged at this time. All right. I also um, am pretty excited about the new moon eclipse coming. It's a little bit more wild and woolly, if you will, but these two eclipses um, are likely going to drive some very major changes from the month of September onward toward March, when the next series of eclipses will occur. All right. Questions. Terry, illegal immigrants versus seniors just trying to survive, can't afford it. Freedom, can't afford life. There is all of that, right? Those are the fears, right? Those fears are amplified. They're going to take away Medicaid. So, and I'm not saying that there aren't real troubles with doing something like that, but it immediately triggers fear. And the problem with fear is that it clouds your judgment. It it starts to break down your access to solutions, because your fear, it's such a high emotion, right? And emotion creates a whole host of physical changes within the body, chemical changes within the body that move us from what is possible only to what it is that we can see that we need to do to survive. We go into survival mode. And survival mode, while it has been adaptive for humans, right? It's helped us be here for the millenniums that we've been here. It is something that takes us out of being able to, from a calmer place, to see solutions that lie outside of only survival, right? So in survival mode, we see all the things that we need to take away, or we need to, put away for the future, the things that we can't do instead of the things we can do, right? So so fear has helped humans stay alive, but it has also been a point of issue for every one of us, right? In our very DNA, we are really favored to survive. Because of that, we have. But it has also then, as we've evolved, taken us out of seeing things from the bigger picture, from evolving, right? Evolving. I would have thought, given the power of the 1960s, right, and the civil changes that came along then, the you know the massive changes, civil liberties made on the world, on the U.S. in particular, I would have thought we were done with that, right? But here we are. Here we are. 60 years later, 55, 60 years later, and we're still dealing with it because more fear. The fear didn't get changed. Our rules changed, but we didn't change the fear yet of other. We didn't change the fear yet of how it is that we can all get along, and of me not being, supreme versus, others. So we still have to deal with it, and that's what these times are, right? It is about our addressing those shadow energies. All right. Now, let's see. TD Hawk, what the government has recently changed Social Security and disability, making recipients victims It's scary, right? We see from our own point of view, don't hate me. Don't hate me when I say this. From our point of view, we're now looking at some immigrants as being victims, right? Well, they made their choices. And that doesn't mean that they're not being victimized in some way, but they made their choices. And every human being has free will to make their choices. And, choices come with consequences. So the choices that we make come with the consequences. And that's a growing up, maturing process. This is the emotional solar plexus under this evolutionary pressure that we see coming in 2027 in human design. It's how do we step back from the emotion of what's being triggered so that we can see ideas and solutions that lie just outside of that emotion. Right? I'm not saying don't feel for people. I'm not saying that because compassion is a big deal. Tolerance and acceptance and compassion, big deals. But how is it that we can empower these people to make new choices, right? And all the people of the countries of the worlds of the planet making new choices from an empowered position, not from fear. That's the kicker. Thanks for bringing that up. Christine, the tech bro billionaires are the ones hurting us, both Elon and Peter Thiel, both called Social Security and Medicare Ponzi schemes. Well, and in a real way, they kind of are, but they are there for safety nets. Those were created for safety nets for us as we age and can no longer, be part of the world of work where we're earning money. And, as long as we have money that we have to buy things with, that could be a problem, right? So we have to keep, while we need to keep, supporting the things that we want, a healthy Medicare system, a healthy Social Security system, a healthy immigration policy, healthy schools, healthy minds, healthy, go on and on. We have to frame it in a way that is toward health and not toward fear. I hope that makes sense to everybody. TD Hawk, not talking about immigrants, talking about the changes to elderly and disabled that they've been legally following the rules and suddenly made victims under the new changed rules, right? Again, we're seeing the shadow. It's up in our faces where we consistently do this, where I'm going to call it the slave mentality that still applies to humanity, even now. Hundreds of years after slavery has been abolished, we are still somewhat slaves. Those of lesser means always end up being walked on by those that have. And that's a shadow that needs to go. MD, good morning. And JLo with this eclipse forming a trine to my Saturn in Cancer second house. What should I focus on most? It's in gate 39. So I would focus most here on what you're being provoked to let go of. What boundaries are you being asked to initiate or to make stronger? And what other boundaries maybe are too strong and rigid and you're being asked to release those in some way? But also, Saturn in Cancer, it's that smother mother potentially that you are dealing with, right? How do you let go as your kids grow up and they need you less and less, and the feelings that you're left with in that case as they don't need you as much as they used to need you, and what do I fill my time with now, and that kind of thing. So I think it's possibly around that, and it's a consistent thing, right? Because we're dealing with these on a consistent basis with Saturn. Christine, many immigrants did follow the rules and laws and still got abducted. Absolutely. That is absolutely true. That is something that's happening, which is why it is that this whole thing about the fear of other is so dangerous, right? Because then everybody's lumped into this category of other. If you have brown skin, if your last name is Hispanic, if you're, if you even look like you're Arab or somebody from a different, country, Asian even. I mean, all of these people, they could all be US citizens. We just have to have the will to make it possible. And I'm not advocating that those people that came here illegally who have broken laws or killed people and done bad things should be able to stay. But we have to rethink how it is we're doing all of this, right? We don't even have a policy that supports immigration in a positive way. It's very negative at this point. It's very much in shadow and fear energy. So we've got to elevate. Terry, he's a rebel. T-Dog in the house. Yes, always a rebel. Yes, horrible, but not talking about the immigrants. I know. I gotcha, Tamara. Gotcha. Christine, yes, they were abducted at courthouses, making routine required appearances, and crooked judges tossing out their legal status and green cards. An American citizen, combat vet, was beaten and jailed. I know. And it makes my blood boil, right? These are the things. These are the things. These are the triggers that we as Americans or as citizens of other countries who are also dealing with this, by the way, right? They're dealing with these same things in a different way in the flavor of their own countries, but we as a world are really dealing with these energies. And how is it what is it that we want? That is what we've got to get clear on, guys. What is it we want? Because right now we see what we don't want, right? We see by contrast. Remember, we had this conversation a week or so ago about contrast. Sometimes we need to see the contrast so we could see how absurd it is to behave in that manner, to be thinking about things in that manner, to be so fearful of other that we treat people horribly. We've got to see the ugly so that we can then choose. That is not the path we want, right? Then we can set about and say, okay, no, that is not it, right? Yes, this is what we want. This is a plan that I can support. This is how I want immigration to be taken care of. This is how I want education to be taken care of. This is how I want healthcare to be taken care of. This is how I want Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid to be taken care of. We have to align with our values, and we are not. We are not, and that's the shadow that we're seeing. That's all the contrariness out there because we are not aligned with our values. We have we have to get back to the very basics of what it is we value as human beings. Do we value it when children go to bed at night hungry because they have parents that can't afford food? Because tariffs are high or because of inflation or what have you? I mean, that's not a value. That is not a human value. That is not a tribal value. That debases the masculine energy of protection and defense and the taking care of the tribe. And it's the job of the feminine to put the value out there. This is the value, right? If we value peace, then why are we always at war? If we value peace, why are we sending National Guard troops into American cities? Because we don't value peace, truly, right? The fear is if I don't send those National Guard people in there, the homelessness is going to get bad, crime is going to get worse. And they create it because that's what they see. That's what they want. They want chaos. They want an authoritarian regime. But the value of the United States, the value statement of democracy was not that way. So we see the opposite so that we'll come back into alignment with the values. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't realign values. Maybe, things that we valued before, like the saying on the Statue of Liberty that says, give me your tired, your poor, your hurting masses yearning to be free. Maybe we have to change that and say, do it legally rather than just come here, right? That's an open invitation. Okay. And the invitation was to come here. To come here. It doesn't say do it legally on the Statue of Liberty. The value that our forefathers put on it was that, hey, this is a melting pot. Come here. We value all of the different ways that people can bring their knowledge, their wisdom, their customs to this nation, and we can build something of uniqueness. That is the value that our forefathers put out there. And now we're saying, but we don't want that. We don't want that, right? We only want white males and women The white people, we only want the white people. I mean, they're not saying that specifically, but that's what they're doing, right? So we have to kind of not react, we have to respond back with no, this is what we want. This is how this country was built. And we will not vote you back in if you behave this way because this is not our value. We will not spend our dollars on supporting you, your programs, because they're not aligned with our values. And we will use our voices to rise up toward what we want because we know what it is that we want, what our value is, what our values are. All right, off soapbox, but this has been interesting, right? Um, Project 2025 is the catalyst for this current horror show. Absolutely. And we knew it, right? Most people knew it. Actually, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people knew it, but a lot of people didn't care because all they saw was that, well, I've had conversations with people about I want lower gas prices. I want eggs to be affordable. I, don't want LGBT, I don't want transgender people in my bathroom. Stuff like that. They are defaulting to fear, right? Not to what is it that this country is really founded on and what is it that really supports our future, right? We're being very much asked to solve the shadows, to embrace the shadow. You cannot heal the shadow unless you embrace it. First of all, you have to know it's there. Then you have to be able to embrace it and forgive them and forgive yourself and do the whole opono thing, right? Thank it for the lesson that it's brought to you and then choose once more from love. Choose the path from love. That's our job. Simple. Really, it is. But each of us has to do that, right? Because we are a collective. So, okay. And don't get attached to the illusion. I love it, MD. I love it. That's great. Choose the path of love always. Always, always, because it is what supports us in our evolution. All right. In the last 4 minutes here, I want to talk about human design influences later in the week. Right now, up until the 3rd, we are in the influences of the sun and the earth at the gate 40 and 37. Remember, we talked about that on Friday about the restoration, right? And the peace. Funny topic, right? Peace. Right here we are this morning. We're right on target with this idea. On the 4th, which is Thursday, we shift into the head gates 64 and 63. And the gate 64 is called divine transference. It's where the divine info comes in from the, World Wide Web, the universal wide web of information, of ideas, and brings it in and is greeted initially, at least in the head center, with confusion. And then the earth is in the gate 63, which is called the gate of curiosity, both in the head center, so the very top center. The gate 64 is where we have to sit with the chaos of unformed ideas, where we're holding space for the vision to take shape, but we don't yet know what that is or what that looks like. And the shadow here is confusion. So if, later in the week you start feeling a little confused, well, you know why, right? But hope is that a week or two later, when the sun moves into the gate 47, opposite of the 64, then we get the aha, the epiphany, oh, yeah, that's how that works. So there is hope. So we're holding space for the vision to take shape, the shadow confusion, the gift is imagination, and the siddhi or highest expression is illumination, right? So the light comes on. And then with the earth at gate 63, it grounds you in questions, right? Your doubt takes shape, and that's in the shadow. The gift is inquiry, asking the questions. What if this? How could this get any better? Who could I talk to about this? How could I make change? Those kinds of things, right? And the siddhi is truth, and the truth shall set you free. But together, these two gates really heighten and clarify the mental activity. So, expect a lot of mind energy from at least September 4th through the 9th. So, into the following week. And maybe, asking us to embrace the spark of uncertainty because there is uncertainty, right? It's a part of the experience as well. And then that leads us, it's that week that the sun and earth come together, or the sun and moon, excuse me, come together in the gate 63, curiosity, for the lunar eclipse. And we'll be talking about that more on Friday. So I hope you'll join me then. And finally, because I know some of you, or not everybody, was here with me at the beginning this morning, the Energy Almanac, the 2627 version, is now on sale from today, September 1st through the 11th. I put the link in the chat up here at the very beginning. Let me see if I can put that link in here still again. I can. Very good. There we go. And this is the coil bound version, right? This is the first part of the sale because the coil bound books, we can only get so many. So place your order somewhere between the 1st and the 11th. You have two choices. The first choice is to buy the book alone and you get free shipping, right? That is a special deal that's going on. And the other one is a bundle where you get the book, you get free shipping, and you get a free ticket to the Astrology of 2026 webinar that I do at the end of every year, right? So with the book, you get the webinar free. And this year's webinar is $75. So it's a $75 value just right there. Also, everyone, the link will take you where you can get the download, the free download for the bridge book, we call it. That will be January, February, March of 2026. Because remember, we're going to a astrological year instead of a calendar year. So we provide you the first 3 months free, and then after that, you'll be on schedule with the actual book. And I know it's early to be selling a book that really doesn't, open for you until March, but it's the Christmas season coming up, right? These make great gifts, and it is something that we have to do to be able to get enough books printed and ready for the upcoming year. So I hope you'll all take advantage of that. And that is it for me this morning. Let's see if there are any last questions. No, that's it. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me on this holiday here in the USA. I'll see you on Friday. Bye for now.